The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
We can't make everyone 100% happy. It's impossible. This is a deliberative body. It's a legislative process.
And as the process plays out, President Trump's big, beautiful bill hangs in limbo. Can the GOP unite to get the bill to the president's desk before the holiday deadline? Mixed verdict against Sean Diddy Combs. The time in prison the rap mogul now faces, and could he be released before hearing that sentence? And one last chance to get a piece of a $95 million settlement agreed to by Apple. Who qualifies, and when does the deadline expire? This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thank you for joining us. What a day it has been on Capitol Hill. Right now, the fate of the mega budget bill, dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill, still being held up in the House of Representatives as a handful of Republicans are seeking assurances before they allow this bill to move forward. All Democrats have indicated they will continue to vote no. This 5-minute procedural vote has remained open. We've been watching it for about 4 hours as leadership tries to get the party in line. For the very latest, here's national correspondent Atra El-Nashar.
Most Republicans call it their one big beautiful bill. But for some in the GOP, it's just too expensive to support.
Have the courage and the fortitude to do what you campaign on when you're talking about balancing the dang budget.
Some debt-conscious House Republicans rejecting the latest version of the mega bill sent to them by the Senate. It addresses the same priorities of border security, defense funding, and providing tax deductions for tips and overtime up to a certain amount, though not eliminating those taxes altogether. But Republican senators, largely by making certain business tax credits permanent, added more than $630 billion to the bill's annual price tag, according to the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office and Joint Committee on Taxation.
If you do that, then you're going to have an issue with respect to revenue and with respect to spending. My colleagues in the Senate failed us.
All told, over the next decade, the bill would add more than $4 trillion to the debt through 2034.
We already have a debt and deficit problem. We shouldn't be adding to it.
As of Monday, America's national debt stood at more than $36.2 trillion.
Debt is a curse.
The federal government will hit its debt limit later this year. The Senate bill would raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion, $1 trillion more than the House's version. Republicans voting for the bill acknowledge it will come with debt, but disagree on outside estimates of how much.
Debt is, I think, is the greatest threat to our country right now. However, now's not the time to really let that stay in the way of this.
For now, it may seem like the politically safe choice for Republicans to fall in line with the president, but billionaire Elon Musk says he will support primary challenges against every lawmaker who promised to reduce government spending and then supported this bill.
Yeah, there are a lot of outliers here and side stories, Atra. Something in this legislation a lot of people are watching is what will happen with the tax on tips and overtime or lack of that. Where do things stand on that front?
Well, the Senate did scale back the House's text, which is what President Trump promised voters to get rid of tax on tips and overtime. Instead, right now, if the bill passes as is, tipped employees can deduct up to $25,000 in tips, and the deduction for overtime pay is $12,500 per worker. And this would only be in effect until 2028. High-income earners making $160K or more a year would not qualify.
Live from Washington, D.C., Atra El-Nashar, thank you for the updates. Sean Diddy Combs will remain behind bars until he learns his sentence on October 3rd, following a mixed verdict today that saw him acquitted of the 3 harshest charges he was facing: racketeering conspiracy and 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. We've got the whole list right here. The rapper was convicted on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Those convictions carry with them a maximum 10 years in prison for each, but it can be sentenced concurrently, allowing him to serve only once. He has also been in custody since last year. That means the judge can agree to time served, actually shortening his sentence even further. A lot to be seen, but still, Cassie Ventura's attorney still called today's verdict a win.
We're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes in RICO, but we understand beyond a reasonable doubt is a high standard.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
Another case we have been watching, Brian Kohberger officially pleading guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary in the fatal stabbing of 4 University of Idaho students in their sleep at an off-campus house in 2022. With the plea, 30-year-old Kohberger avoids the death penalty but waives his right to appeal. He faces a fine of up to $50,000 and life in prison with a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years on each count. Kohberger was a doctoral student at Washington State University when he was arrested in connection with the killings based on DNA and other forensic evidence. Some family members of the 4 victims support the agreement to avoid a quadruple murder trial. Others disagree, saying there are still many unanswered questions, including Kohberger's motive.
This isn't what we should be doing. You don't deal with terrorists, and you don't deal with people who kill you kids in their sleep. So, we'll never see this as justice.
New tonight, the Wisconsin abortion battle has finally come to an end after more than 3 years of legal disputes. The state Supreme Court ruled today that an 1849 law does not equate to an abortion ban, allowing some abortions to proceed in the state. The legislation criminalized anyone other than the mother or doctor in a medical emergency to destroy an unborn child. The court ruled newer state laws that permit abortions up until a fetus is viable outside the womb supersede the old provision. The White House is releasing $175 million in frozen funds back to the University of Pennsylvania after UPenn agreed to ban biological males from women's sports. This move will resolve a civil rights case that found the school violated the rights of female athletes. This case focused on Leah Thomas, a transgender swimmer who competed on the women's team in 2022. The school also agreed to restore all swimming records and titles to female athletes who lost to Thomas. And here is video out of Philadelphia. It shows piles and piles of trash on the streets here as 9,000 workers, including sanitation employees, they went on strike yesterday. Negotiations continue today between city officials and District Council 33, Philadelphia's largest workers union. Now, both sides say they want this strike to end before the holiday, but as of yet, no deal has been made. President Trump's executive order barring migrants from seeking asylum at the border is getting blocked. Today, a federal judge ruled the policy was illegal, but he's giving the administration 2 weeks to appeal. So the block will take effect on July 16th. In January, Trump characterized the southern border situation as an invasion that justified banning asylum seekers. Law enforcement is warning Americans to be vigilant as they celebrate the 4th of July holiday with lone wolf terrorism, the top concern. National correspondent Matt Galka reports from Washington.
As millions around the country get ready to celebrate Independence Day, a warning from the Department of Homeland Security. ABC News reports multiple bulletins from the FBI and DHS have cited lone wolf attackers as the biggest concern heading into the holiday, potentially inspired by terrorist organizations. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said they were monitoring all threats following U.S. strikes on Iran nuclear facilities.
We've seen some from overseas and some that have been here, maybe gone overseas for a short period of time, become radicalized and come back, or individuals that are right here in the United States. So we have to watch for all of it and to be diligent on all of it, and we'll continue to do so.
The bulletins reportedly mentioned San Francisco and New York specifically. With large crowds expected to watch fireworks in both places, authorities are concerned about copycats mirroring other terror attacks we've already seen this year. Law enforcement cited the New Orleans truck attack on Bourbon Street from New Year's Day. Former FBI Special Agent Ken Gray says oftentimes a lone wolf attacker leaves less of a paper trail when planning to do harm.
People are traveling internationally. They may have communications that are international. They may receive funding. They may receive training. Those type of things are red flags that are easier to detect than somebody who on their own decides to adopt a certain philosophy.
A separate warning from the FBI says threats are not only hanging over in-person events, but they're also coming in the form of cyber attacks. The FBI put out a message on the hacking group called Scattered Spider, who are now targeting airline systems. The hackers pose as real employees or contractors to gain access to sensitive information, and they're suspected of targeting at least 2 major airlines in June. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
7 people are unaccounted for after a California fireworks storage warehouse exploded last night, according to CAL FIRE. The facility northwest of Sacramento burst into flames. Look, emitting sparks and smoke. Officials said it caused several building fires, spot vegetation fires, evacuations, and power outages. CAL FIRE, it is massive, and the state marshal's arson bomb unit, they are investigating, and first responders are searching for the missing. Coming up, another day, another deal. The latest country to reach a trade agreement with President Trump and the status of talks with other nations. Also, you have just hours left to file a claim in a class action lawsuit against Apple, how Siri users can potentially get paid. Then, the suspected serial rapist just arrested in a California city's first genealogy-based case of its kind. We're back in 90 seconds. President Donald Trump says he has a trade deal with Vietnam. It is the second trade deal announced by the administration after agreeing to terms with the UK. The terms with Vietnam, according to the president, dictate a 20% tariff on Vietnamese imports to the U.S. and a 40% tariff if the goods originated elsewhere, like China, before transit from Vietnam. In return, Vietnam is opening its markets to U.S. goods with no tariffs. Trump thinks this will be good for U.S. automakers. Trump says negotiations with multiple nations are ongoing. His deadline for new agreements is next week. The private sector is losing jobs for the first time in more than 2 years. According to ADP, employers lost around 33,000 jobs last month. Economists were predicting a gain of 115,000. They say the main reason is companies' hesitancy to hire or replace departing workers. Still, layoffs are low. Tomorrow's Labor Department report should offer some more clarity. And more Americans are refinancing their mortgages with refinance apps, rising 7% last week. Applications are also 40% higher than a year ago, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. Meantime, mortgage applications increased nearly 3% from last week. Rates are the lowest since April, with the 30-year fixed rate averaging 6.79%. CBS and its parent company, Paramount, have agreed to pay $16 million set to go to President Trump's foundation for his future presidential library. It is all part of a lawsuit many experts predicted Trump had little chance of winning. So what happened? Here's national correspondent Christine Frizzell with a look at why President Trump's war on the media may continue.
We are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States.
The lawsuit centers on this interview that aired on CBS's 60 Minutes a few weeks before the 2024 election. But a longer, more rambling response to the question was played on CBS's Face the Nation, prompting Donald Trump to accuse the network of deceptive editing and, quote, election interference.
She gave an answer that was so bad that they changed it. They took it out, threw it out.
CBS said the response was simply cut down for time, a common practice.
You know, we're probably going to sue him just for the hell of it.
In a statement, CBS head George Cheek said settlement allows companies to focus on their core mission.
He's saying their core objectives are not, in fact, the news. Because if the core objective of CBS was the news, they would keep litigating. The core objective of CBS is to generate revenue.
CBS parent company Paramount is hoping to merge with the company Skydance, which needs the approval of Trump's Federal Communications Commission. Senator Ron Wyden accusing Paramount of paying Trump a bribe for merger approval. Other critics blasting another agreement, the release of complete transcripts by 60 Minutes with future presidential candidates.
It's an unconstitutional idea, and it really makes the Trump administration look officious and look like it's a totalitarian leadership when it attacks the freedom of the press to this point.
The settlement, $16 million, the same amount as one with ABC News, after anchor George Stephanopoulos said Trump had been found liable for rape in a civil suit, which he hadn't. ABC recently firing longtime reporter Terry Moran after a series of posts on X critical of President Trump and his advisor, Stephen Miller. So far, lawsuits have earned the president $67 million for his presidential library, and there are indications more may be coming. He's now threatened to sue CNN and the New York Times for publishing articles about leaked intelligence, which said that recent attack by the U.S. on Iran had only set the country's nuclear program back by a couple months. I'm Christine Frizzell for the National News Desk.
And time is running out for you to join in on the $95 million class action lawsuit with Apple. If you purchased an Apple product in the last decade, today is your final day to try and get a piece of that settlement. We are talking about any of these products that you see right here. They are iPhones, iPads, Apple Watches, iMacs, and iPod Touches, even Apple TV. According to the lawsuit, Apple is accused of violating user privacy with their voice-activated assistant Siri recording private conversations. Some people have already received notices in the mail giving them a claim number to file online. But if you owned an Apple product between 2014 and 24, you could be entitled to money. You can search Siri Submit Claim online, and you'll find a link to file your claim. Again, that deadline is today. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has canceled an order requiring Navy Federal Credit Union to pay a $95 million settlement without giving a reason. The CFPB ordered the bank to pay it last November after Biden-era officials accused Navy Federal of charging illegal overdraft fees. It included $80 million for impacted customers, plus a penalty. Ceasefire negotiations in Gaza are heating up again. President Trump says Israel has agreed to the latest offer initiated by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff for a 60-day cessation of fighting in the Gaza Strip. That does include getting back some of the hostages remaining, as well as some of the dead bodies being held by Hamas. Reports out of the Middle East say Hamas is reviewing the deal, but has not signed off on it yet. Meantime, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today there will be no Hamas in post-war Gaza. Israel has maintained it would only agree to end the war if Hamas surrenders, disarms, and exiles itself. Hamas refuses to do that, leaving the fate of the ceasefire up in the air. Prime Minister Netanyahu is scheduled to come back to the White House on Monday. Meanwhile, Ukraine is moving forward with plans for joint weapons production with some international allies. Ukraine's president says officials are preparing to meet with European European Union countries and other partners. It comes after the U.S. announced it's halting some missile and ammunition shipments promised to Ukraine under the Biden administration due to low supply. If the heat is making your joint pain worse, a newer way of treating it may help you find relief. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains how it all works.
Hey there, everybody. This machine right here can deliver radiation doses, and we often think of those as treatment for cancer. What it's also helping to cure, however, is chronic pain. It tends to work best on the pain you'd likely feel with every step if you've been diagnosed with osteoarthritis. Dr. Olshi Juicy told me he's a radiation oncologist here at Kentucky St. Elizabeth Healthcare.
For osteoarthritis in particular, it's usually the damage to the cartilage between the two bones of the knees.
That damage, which usually looks like this on a typical scan, is often due to inflammation and bone-on-bone pain. The radiation is given in about 1/20th of the traditional dose used in cancer treatment with this machine.
And it's done for a total of 6 times over 2 to 3 weeks.
In most cases, then, it's one and done, Dr. Juicy told me.
About 70% of the patients have report pretty significant reduction in pain at that point. About a third of the patients, about 30% of the patients still continue to have some persistent pain. And in those cases, we discuss a second-time treatment.
It works, he says, mainly because in the knee, hips, or elbows, it simply reverses the inflammation when anti-inflammatory medications or even steroid injections stop working. The goal is to reduce not just these medications, but also to have patients who say,
I'm a little bit more mobile and more able to go up the steps at home, or I'm more able to play golf for some of the more active patients that we have.
Now, in most cases, if you've tried other therapies without success for this kind of pain, this therapy is covered by your medical insurance plan. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Coming up next, outrage at a video showing a chaotic clash with cops in New York. How the police department is responding. We'll tell you more in 90 seconds. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Maryland, where a house is completely destroyed after it exploded.
Well, Baltimore County fire officials confirmed that no one was home during the explosion, which of course is a huge relief. The family is believed to be on vacation, but when they come home, they'll be coming back to this devastation. Just horrible. Essentially, only the foundation of the home is left, pieces of the home and debris scattered all across this neighborhood, even damaging the home to the right of us. And also going across the street where we are behind the police line, you can see pieces of the home also all the way here across the street. So obviously very heartbreaking, but at least no one was hurt. But we do know that this investigation is active and ongoing.
This case is not just about today's arrests. It's about achieving the justice for the 5 Fresno women that we know about who Flores encountered in public and later forcibly raped.
After 5 years of relentless detective work, Fresno Police Chief Mindy Castro says they've made a breakthrough in a string of sexual assault cases. On Tuesday morning, 55-year-old accused serial rapist Cesar Flores was arrested at a trailer park near Church and Indianola Avenue in Fresno County. And for the first time in Fresno, investigators used forensic genealogy to crack the case.
We're hopeful by sharing his image and sending the message he's off the streets, any additional victims will be encouraged to come forward.
Rochester police answering questions concerning cell phone videos shared on social media of a chaotic scene involving officers and members of the public.
Our officers got there and we immediately encountered a hostile crowd. So you had dozens of people out on the street, on Locust Street, being verbally assaultive at our officers, yelling at the officers because they didn't want us to take the mini bike.
RPD says since the unregistered bike was illegally operated and involved in a crash, it's their responsibility to impound it.
When we asked him, can he get the bike, and he said, back the F up. And then he came out here and it just got loud. And everybody just started going off.
Rochester police say the incident and officer response is under review at the section level, so they're waiting to release the body-worn camera video.
Coming up, Chuck E. Cheese is no longer just for kids. What's inside their new adult arcades? You have to listen to this. Chuck E. Cheese is unveiling arcades for adults. So far, 10 Chuck's Arcade locations are open at malls nationwide, including in El Paso, Texas, and St. Petersburg, Florida. The company says they feature nostalgic arcade games like Donkey Kong, prizes to win, food, and old school merch, and animatronic Chuck E. Cheese and other characters are there as well. The pizza was always memorable there. This rock you see here is a piece of Mars, and soon it will go on sale at an upcoming Sotheby's auction, weighing about 54 pounds. It's the largest known Martian meteorite that has been found on Earth. And that is going to do it for us for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thanks for watching. See you tonight at 10.